Here is Jane Pauley.
Good evening. A little boy, hungry and alone, walks up to you and tells you he's been abandoned. You'd try to help, wouldn't you? The people you're about to meet tonight decided to help, and in a big way. Until they discovered the boy with the sad story had a shocking secret. It took them a week to figure it out. See how long it takes you. It's a story we first told you about 2.5 years ago, and there have been some important developments since. Here's Keith Morrison.
It's the morning of December 20th, 5 days before Christmas, 1995. The people of Salt Lake City are about to be told a Christmas story so sad it seems as if it's been lifted straight from a Dickens novel.
We begin tonight with a Utah story that's touching people across the country this holiday.
He came with nothing, a lost boy, with only the clothes on his back and a birth certificate and an envelope in his hand.
His parents abandoned him at the bus depot in downtown Salt Lake.
The lost boy showed up outside this group home just about lunchtime. Youth worker Jeff Birch caught him peeking in the window.
I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Michael," and I shook his hand. I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "I'm supposed to give this to you." He handed me a sealed envelope and ran.
It was from Michael's stepmother. Here is what it says. "My husband Alan just found out he's dying from AIDS. He doesn't want Michael around, and I can't care for Michael alone. His natural mother died shortly after his birth. We give our permission for you to do whatever you think is best, but it will be a waste of time to look for us because we're leaving the country."
Well, it stunned me. I'm reading the note. I can't believe what I'm reading. I read it again, and I called him back. I said, "Michael, come back, let's talk."
Sometimes this job has got to tear your heart out when you see it.
It really does. It really does. It was cold outside, and just the look on his face was one, he was scared.
Michael, cold, skittish, kept running. Jeff caught him, coaxed him back, put him in the boys' home where at least he'd have a warm bed, hot meals, and companionship.
We assigned him a bedroom, and he jumped right up on the top bunk, just like a 13-year-old boy would. Jumped right up. "This is my bed."
Gradually, Michael warmed up to the male staff here. To Gene Eccles, director of the group home, he spilled out bits and pieces of his young life, painful and damaged.
He alluded of abuse and a very hard life of growing up, a father that was very abusive to him. Talked about a stepmother that was obviously no love there. In fact, she couldn't stand Michael.
The Department of Human Services had to be told. Workers there searched about for a foster home for him and tried without much luck to piece together the story of Michael's tragic life.
The caseworker said he had a birth certificate. And I said, "That's interesting. When's his birthday?" And the caseworker said, "Christmas." And I'll tell you, my big lump right here. I had to swallow hard. That was too much. And I said to myself, this is a story that has to be told.
And so it was, the story of the boy born during a blizzard on Christmas Day to a life of pain and sorrow, and abandoned days before his 13th birthday.
Social workers have tried tirelessly to find the boy's parents.
The story of the blizzard boy quickly spread across the country, and kind-hearted people were eager to help.
"Can we adopt the boy? Can we take him home? I must have this boy," they would say.
Maybe because it was Christmas, maybe because some people do care. It was as if love had finally arrived, and people all over Salt Lake began to get a sense of real joy about what was being done. It was amazing, really, that a destitute boy could find himself alone and abandoned here at a city bus station, and not a week later have opened Christmas presents, have 2 trust funds set up in his name, and have families eagerly offering to give him a home. Time for the next chapter to begin. And what a chapter that is. It begins on the day after Christmas, the day after his birthday. Michael found himself in court.
I asked a few questions, suggested that he put the Game Boy down and involve himself in the proceeding.
Michael appeared before juvenile court judge Frederick Odone, whose job was to find the boy a better life.
As he would respond to questions, the timbre and the quality of the voice was a little unusual. And that's when it became a little more curious, a little more suspicious.
Suspicious? Judge Odone was bothered by his demeanor, by the way he avoided the judge's eyes. And he noticed that though Michael had been given a medical exam, it was not complete.
Wouldn't take his clothes off. Absolutely not. Wouldn't even consider it.
By the morning of the 27th, Judge Odone's suspicions had grown, and he wasn't alone.
We were making meals for the kids, and then we got a call and said, you need to keep a close eye on this child. Immediately, we might have something going on. And some detectives showed up a short time later.
Detectives?
Detectives.
And we says, well, you know, we're just trying to find who your parents are, Michael. Well, I don't want to talk to you if you're cops.
By this time, the Salt Lake Sheriff's Office had received some disturbing information, and the judge called a meeting in his chambers.
I said, let me ask you, even though this may be a little unusual, are you a boy or a girl?
What did he say?
He paused, and he thought, and then looked up and said, I'm a boy.
And back at the shelter, Detective Stephen Jench looked this boy, or was it girl, in the eye.
So then we just said, well, we know who you are, and we just need to talk to you about and figure out what you've been doing and why you've been doing this.
Doing what?
Stunning. Shocking.
All of Salt Lake City was shocked to see their Christmas miracle carted off to jail. Michael Ross was not a he, but a she.
Yeah, you could say it was too good or too bad to be true.
Randy Ripplinger called in the press again.
Their jaws hit the floor. Nobody seemed ready for this. Nobody seemed ready for it. We have recently discovered from reports from other states that this individual is not a 13-year-old boy, but in fact is a 25-year-old woman.
They got the gender wrong. They got the age wrong. They got everything wrong. This was a 25-year-old woman who had used at least 6 aliases, whose real name, ironically, is Birdie Jo Hoax.
Police arrested the alleged imposter at a group home this afternoon.
You find yourself as a public relations director for the Human Resources Department, and the story you've given to the world isn't true?
Yeah, it took my breath away. The country, the entire country, and even people from overseas responded, how can we help this boy? And now we have to turn around and tell them, once again, America, we've been suckered.
And how they were suckered. The police reports that alerted Detective Jench now poured in. One state followed another, and another, and another. Birdie Jo Hoax had pulled off her scam in at least 17 other states since 1988. In South Dakota, she said she was Nathan Devine, a 13-year-old boy abandoned by his mother. He carried this letter. I recently found out I have a very short time left to live and don't want Nathan around to watch. Hoax spent 7 months in jail for welfare fraud there. In Montana, she was known as 13-year-old Michael and carried this letter. I don't want to see Michael again. As far as I'm concerned, he's no longer my son. When officials became suspicious, Hoax fled. In Wichita, Kansas, a court-ordered medical exam revealed that Birdie Jo had a C-section scar and had bound her breasts with tape. In New York, another scam, another arrest, and this one was even covered on television.
Can you tell us why you did this?
I told you in court.
Well, can you tell us again?
Just to get a place to stay and some food to eat.
Why'd you do it in the other states, Birdie?
For the same reason.
How did you get away with it? How did you fool people?
Well, I look young, and a lot of people tend to believe that I am young.
What about all those hard-bitten reporters who, with tears in their prose, breathlessly told the story in Salt Lake?
Everybody got suckered, up and down the line.
Chip Parkinson got a front-page byline for breaking the story in the Deseret News.
Looking back on it, we probably all say to ourselves, we should have known. It was too good to be true.
But Birdie Jo had bruised far more than tender journalistic ego. She had done real damage. Judge O'Done, angry now, got ready for an already cynical public to turn its back on needy, itinerant children.
People were calling from all over the United States offering to take this child home for Christmas and make Christmas for him. And what this did is this slammed the door on all that charity and all that kindness.
Birdie Jo spent 30 days in jail in Salt Lake for forgery and making false statements, then was released to this homeless shelter. She was ordered by the court to complete a life skills course. Life skills? Birdie Jo could write a thesis on the kind you need around here. But why did she do it? One night she agreed to meet us in an abandoned railway station. She told a story and asked us to believe.
I'm just trying not to wind up dead somewhere.
When all of this began, Birdie tells us, she was 18 in New York and homeless.
Actually, at first when I was living on the streets, everyone knew that I was a girl. I dressed like a girl, acted like a girl.
Which in Manhattan street culture, she discovered, was an invitation to a nightmare.
So I might as well let them know I'm a boy straight off, and then maybe they won't hassle me as much.
And it worked.
And it worked.
It was, she says, a revelation. Where she had been disbelieved or badly treated as a woman, she was welcomed as a boy. She'd been laughed at, abused, and thrown out of places decent people go. But when she handed over one of her letters, she said, it was a magic ticket to acceptance, which she'd steal for a day or a week and move on.
Well, I've always wanted to see the country, not exactly the way I'm seeing it, but I've always loved to travel.
She tells us her mother did abandon her as a baby, and now she's a mother herself, of a little girl she turned over to an aunt.
That's not something I can discuss.
But is any of that an excuse to con a city at Christmas?
Do you feel sorry at all for what you did?
I did cheat people, and for that I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out how to actually tell the people at the shelter, because I thought it had gone too far, but then I didn't know how to get out of it or how to change it without hurting a lot of people.
Some people think that you wanted to just take advantage of that situation, wanted to take that money away.
That's not true.
You wanted that money, didn't you?
No, I did not want their money.
She only wanted, she told us, to Huckleberry Finn her way back to San Jose, California, back to the twin sister who could help restart her life. She would have us believe that she cares, that she won't do it again, just as she has promised a dozen times before.
You know, there will be those who say, Keith, you just got taken by Birdie.
All I can say is I'm not a con artist. People are probably going to look at me and say, yeah, you're just going to say that you're not going to do it, but we'll see.
You saw the country.
I saw the country.
We caught up with Birdie Jo this summer, 2.5 years after our story first aired. We found her living in San Jose, reunited with her twin sister, just as she told us she planned to do. And she'd found a job, looked for a church to join. Had Birdie Jo changed her ways?
Yeah, the first time Birdie showed up at the church, she introduced herself as Chris.
That's right, in a church, to the pastor. Birdie Jo introduced herself as a 12-year-old boy. By now, she was 27 years old and a mother of 2 children of her own.
She approached me at the end of the service and said, I just came into the area and I'd like to be a part of your Royal Ranger program, and I want to be the Royal Ranger of the Year.
Birdie Jo was trying to join the church's scouting troop, but there was something about that young boy that didn't look right to Pastor Green. It's not that he suspected he was a she. It was a giveaway that was bound to come up sooner or later.
She appeared to have crow's feet at the corner of her eyes, and I've never met a 12-year-old boy with crow's feet.
So Pastor Green asked around, had other churches in the area encountered anyone posing as a child? In fact, yes. Green discovered that Birdie Jo had pretended to be a boy at 3 other churches in Northern California, and in each case, she was asked to leave. The pastor called the police and sent out this letter to warn other churches in the area, hoping once and for all to end Birdie Jo's hoax.
I think by the time she saw the officers, she knew that we had her number.
Did they? Even after Pastor Green's letter went out, Birdie Jo showed up at this San Jose church last fall, wearing, of all things, a Royal Ranger's uniform. But the San Jose youth pastor had read Pastor Green's warning letter and called police.
I was standing there in the doorway, and he at that time still saw me and became really nervous and scared. And then I told her I had some concerns as to who she really was, and if she wanted to tell me the truth, I had all night to listen.
Officer Brendan Nolan interviewed Birdie Jo for hours. Since it's not against the law to impersonate a boy, she wasn't arrested. Birdie Jo asked if she could speak to the church pastor.
She was very apologetic to him. She was very sorry for what she had done. She never meant to hurt anybody at the church. And he took her and gave her a huge hug and said she was always welcome at the church as long as she comes as Birdie Hoax and not as a 13-year-old boy.
And now it remains a mystery. Why did Birdie need to pretend she's a boy? Those who've met her say it may be love and friendship she seeks. We found Birdie with her twin and tried to ask her ourselves, but this time, Birdie said she'd talked enough for now.
Birdie says she's trying to be good and hasn't impersonated a young boy again. She says she wants to concentrate on putting this all behind her and hopes someday to reunite with her children.